stuck do you think the Knicks are here in the Eastern Conference?
Well, I certainly agree with you. They're not getting into that tier. They don't have enough personnel. They don't have the manpower that they need to hang with those guys. I think you're going to get a consistent team like they've been. They're a pretty good team. They're well coached. They're going to be on their defensive game. But at the end of the day, they don't have a dude. You got to have a dude. You got to have a 1A dude. And they're missing that at the end of the day if we're just getting down to brass taxes. Sorry.
I didn't want to disagree with Becky today, but they do have their dude.
Who?
Jalen Brunson.
No, he's too small.
But here's the thing, and that's
Didn't they say about you?
But you know what?
They say that about you, and you're a Hall of Famer.
I got a philosophy. Can I say my philosophy?
Go ahead.
If your best player is small, you're not winning. John Stockton, Allen Iverson, Steve Nash, you could go down the list. Steph Curry is the only.
But he's not that small. He's not that small. He's like 6'3".
But also, though, I mean, he's the greatest shooter to ever walk the planet. He's in an outlier class.
Okay.
She is right. History says she is right.
She is right. We are right, and we're going to talk about it. Imman Adan, thank you so much for joining me, one of my favorite NBA writers. So happy you are here to conclude the last Ladies First Fridays of the calendar year.
Yes, thank you for having me. She is right.
She is. And Imman, I don't even understand the reaction to this, because this is something that's just like a known thing. You know, it's not some phenomenon. It's why players like Isaiah Thomas have complained that there's like a height bias, right? And it's why people like me, who's like a pro Steph Curry person, are always like, y'all use Steph's height against him because he's an exception to the rule, but he is as great as those other guys, right? And there have only been two. And this is when semantics come in, Imman, because some people are starting this list at like different heights, and, you know, Steph Curry's officially listed as 6'2", let's just be clear. But whether you start the list from 6'3" and under, some people say it's 6'4" because they want to throw Dwayne Wade in there. But regardless, like the fact that we can like pinpoint these examples like this and just say there's a handful is making the point. These are exceptions to the rule. Typically, your best player, if they're guards, and they're usually going to be guards if they're smaller, cannot be your best player and you win it all. Doesn't mean you won't be successful. Doesn't mean you can't have a very great team. Doesn't mean you can't be far. So when I see people, what about Allen Iverson? And what about, Tony Parker? Okay, first of all, Tim Duncan was there. Let's just be clear about that. And I love Tony Parker, but like it was Tim Duncan. And that's the point. Like it just can't happen. And it's not to say that those taller players who have won it all didn't have help, because they did. Absolutely. This is not a help conversation.
Right. So this conversation, I think, about the Warriors and small ball for a long time dominated the NBA. But the actual secret was they were just more skilled. Draymond Green can provide something. And that's actually part of the secret to why Stephen Curry, as a small guard, is able to be so successful, is because of the way that he plays off ball, because they're able to put the ball in Draymond's hands and initiate pick and rolls and things that way. If you have bigger guys to initiate your offense, you are going to be a better basketball team. This is a conversation that is not new to basketball. It's one we've been having for forever. It defines Chris Paul's career. So the conversation that Becky Hammon somehow is out to get Jalen Brunson doesn't quite make sense. She's also a small guard. So we've seen this with her. She's talking about it from firsthand experience as a small guard herself. But in the NBA, if you can package all of the skills of a guard, but put it in a 7-footer, cough, Nikola Jokic, you are going to have the best player in basketball, right? That is why big wings have become a thing, having bigger playmakers, because if I'm in a playoff scenario and my job is to stop the other team and their best player is their point guard and the ball's in his hands, guess what I'm going to do? Trap him every single time. I'm going to use size to make his life uncomfortable or make her life uncomfortable. That's what teams do, which is why when your best player is your point guard, you're more than often not going to get to the top spot unless your point guard is Stephen Curry, who is the best off-ball player in basketball, right? Like the best off-ball guard we've ever seen. So unless your guard can play off ball, to the likes of Stephen Curry, you're just going to struggle because what are teams going to do? They're going to trap you and force the ball out of your hands, try to deny you from getting to the ball, and now your team is going to have to figure out how to run offense without their point guard. It's a disaster unless you have a guy like Draymond Green on your team. So she's entirely correct. It's something we've seen time and time again. I think people are upset because it's the Knicks, and Knicks fans really like Jalen Brunson, and people get in their feelings for things like that. And also, maybe her being a woman has something to do with it. But
we know her being a woman, to me, I think
has
is
a
the
lot
bigger.
To do with it. Yeah.
Come on, men have said this over and over and over again. This is not a new basketball philosophy. It's not a novel concept. This is just like a well-known, accepted thing. And like, I don't even really care about what Kendrick Perkins said, like when he was going back and forth with her, because their job is to have someone up there who's gonna like disagree with her. But Perk knows this is true, you know? But it's the way everyone else was reacting. And it's just like, well, how do you know Jalen Brunson won't do it? Well, we don't know, but we're basing it on his career right now. And I don't like to really compare players from past generations, but he is playing right now in the era of Steph Curry. I don't think anyone thinks Jalen Brunson is the level of player Steph Curry is. So what are we doing here? Like, that's why, you know? And I mean, I just can't believe all the arguments I'm seeing today, Imman. It was just really ridiculous to me. And again,
I have something else to add. Not only is he not the best off-ball guard we've ever seen or the best shooter of all time, I think it's hard to win with a small guard. It's defined Chris Paul's career, as I've said, but he's also not Chris Paul, right? Like, he is not, when we're talking about the best player to win on a championship team, we're talking about LeBron James. We're talking about Stephen Curry, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant. That's the ilk of player we're talking about, and I love Jalen Brunson. Listen, my favorite player of all time, bar none, is a Villanova point guard who's 6 feet tall. So, like, I love Villanova guards. I love small guys. But Jalen Brunson, for as good as he is, which I think he should be an all-star this year, his first time ever, he should make an all-NBA team. The Knicks are playing fantastic, is not a first-team all-NBA guy. And if you're not a first-team all-NBA guy, history says, unless you're the Detroit Pistons, you're not winning at all.
I'm so happy you made this point, because I say this all the time. And by the way, it's my bias is not towards a small player. In the beginning of the year, when we were ranking teams and we were on the show and I was talking with Kurt Heelan, and he was like, you know, a team I'm high on that I don't see on your list right now, Natalie, are the Cavaliers. And I'm like, well, high on them in terms of what? Like, they can't win at all. They don't have one of those dudes. And he was just like, Donovan's one of those dudes. And I'm like, no, Donovan's not a dude.
Then
you need one of those dudes. This is not even a hype thing completely. Like, if you don't have a tier 1 guy, that's it. You're not winning. And that's why anytime I see teams that don't have them, no matter how good they are, I'm always betting on a team that does have one. And that's just it. And basketball history tells me more times than not, that's going to be the correct answer. So listen, the only thing I was annoyed by was Becky having to tweet later to clarify her position. Well, look, she still stood on business anyway when she retweeted, but like the fact that she even felt compelled to do that was ridiculous. Like, Becky, first of all, the audacity of any of these people to question you when you have more basketball experience than most of them. So stand on business. You said what you said, and that's it. Like, this was a ridiculous discussion, but
it's not like she said Jalen Brunson can never win a chip. Just as the best player, it's going to be very difficult for him to do so. Guess what? It was very difficult for LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Anthony Davis and all sorts of players to win championship rings. It takes a lot. Most guys are not going to do it. And it's okay to not be 1A. It's okay to be 1B. It's okay to be a tier 2 player. That's still a lot of fun. I think a large part of this conversation comes down to this idea that you have to be a 1A guy, like making the playoffs time in and time out. Chris Paul's never won a ring, makes you somehow lesser, or makes the Knicks experience somehow lesser, or is disrespecting them. And that's not entirely what's happening. That's not what she said. I'm glad that she clarified it for the people who felt disrespected by it at all. But I think everyone needs to take a step back and think about what, in her words, were disrespectful. She didn't say Jalen Brunson wasn't good. She didn't say that, she just said he's too small to carry a team. And history tells us she's correct. And also her playing experience, her coaching experience. She's had tons of it. If anyone can speak about it, it should be a Hall of Fame small guard. And that's Becky Hammon.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.